Thank you, Director Harris, and I am inspired that under your leadership, we are definitely going to get there in that partnership, so it's very exciting. And I was going to give my own personal shout out to Danny Eakins. I've worked with him out of decades, I think now. He's been an amazing partner. He is one of the smartest people in knowing all things about veterans, especially in the civil world after you leave, in the veterans world as a retired military, and he's been a great partner. Then I also wanted to give a shout out to Pete and Donna Miller, who are sitting up here in front with me. So Pete is a retired scientist who worked on the space shuttle, so I call him my personal rocket scientist. And his wife was one of the first ones to ever use the internet. And for some reason, God knows why, they adopted me. They used to ride with the Patriot Guard, which, as many of you know, go with military funerals. Adopted me as their charge and have done all things to make me much better known. Have a website and everything, and none of it I know how to operate. Wouldn't do anything without them. But if you want to go on the website, it's estrattonconsulting.org. There is a ton of information. He's taped numerous veterans conferences. There's references to prior conferences, a lot of the Attorney General Task Force, Stepping Up, which is a project that I work on, trying to help people with mental illness get out of jail. All that's on that website, estrattonconsulting.org. But it's all due to these two folks that I even have something like that as a resource, so thank you very much. So now we're going to go to the legal aid services, and I want to give a little personal story about legal aid. I've known about them and worked with them for a long time, but then many years ago, we wanted to try to increase legal representation for veterans. And I regret to say this, I'm a little ashamed to say this, but some people in my legal profession don't want to work with legal aid, but they would work with veterans. So we sort of did a backdoor effort. I started an operation, Legal Help Ohio, which was a nonprofit to try to recruit lawyers to work on veterans issues, not criminal, because they usually had a court-appointed lawyer or a judge advocate, but civil issues. And they helped me with funding. They helped me with office space until we eventually moved to Capital Law School. They were a constant partner in doing so. And we operated that for about 6 or 8 years and managed to recruit 350 lawyers at our peak to work on veterans issues. And then I realized it was time to, when to hold them and when to fold them. The legal aid had so much going on in the veterans world with a lot of staff attorneys and some much more funding than I had, because my funding method was what my board referred to as Friends of Eve, and I was getting kind of worn out by it. So we folded it, turned our lawyers back over to legal aid, and hopefully many of them stayed with them. So I have a very big fondness in my heart for legal aid and all that they can do. And so there's just some wonderful opportunities for veterans. They've been big in this space for a long time. And so I just wanted to let you know about that resource. And so we're very excited to have 2 speakers to share about what legal aid is doing in supportive services. So Anna Lynch is the Veterans Outreach Attorney at Legal Aid of Southeast and Central Ohio. And she has a monthly veterans clinic at the Columbus VA Hospital. She has developed a lot of relationships in the veterans world and the supportive world, which is so important. And Diana Wiebe is the Communications and Program Manager at Ohio Legal Help, manages a lot of the communications, the network of partners, strengthens all the criminal justice or the civil justice work. And before that, she worked at Ohio Access to Justice Foundation, which is the funding arm for the legal aid societies, and one of the great partners for us. And so we're real excited to go into the part of our program that has all these supportive services that help these other organizations you heard this morning become even more successful in supporting veterans. So please take it away.
All right, thank you. I'm Anna Lynch, as you said, excuse me, the Veterans Outreach Attorney at Legal Aid of Southeast and Central Ohio, located in our Columbus office. My big goal today is to just let everyone know what legal aid does and who we can help, with a specific focus on our veteran clients. And to all the veterans in the audience today and online, thank you for your service. Truly means everything. I'm excited to be here. and it's an honor to do the work that I do every day for Ohio veterans, and a privilege to share with you all the work that I do and my other colleagues do, and not just at LASCO, but the legal aids that are also represented here from across the state. And hopefully Diana, after she's done, you'll have a better understanding of how to find your legal aid and get in contact with them. Before I get going, we were hoping to have a representative from the VA with us. She wasn't able to make it, but I just want to say, give a shout out to Madeline and the program that she helps run, the legal services for veterans who are homeless and at risk of homelessness. LASCO is a proud grantee of that program, and they've helped expand our reach. And I think when you understand why VA has that program, you understand why legal aid is so important for veterans. So I didn't get this necessarily from the VAs, so if I say anything wrong, blame me, not them. But from my understanding, you know, there's these challenge surveys with the homeless population, and each year these surveys were returning that the 60 to 70% of the top 10 unmet needs for veterans who are homeless were legal needs, and the majority of those were civil needs, legal needs. So again, they've helped expand our reach, and we're usually bound by income restrictions, but with this grant from VA, we're not, as long as the veteran's at risk of homelessness or homeless. So I think I'll continue on now. So today, I'm going to talk about who we are, give a general overview, how do you get in contact with us, and if you have any questions. So we're Legal Aid of Southeast and Central Ohio. We have 8 offices. We're in 36 counties. I've got the map on the next page, but basically Columbus, and then to the south and to the east. That's our service area. You might have been familiar with Legal Aid Society of Columbus and Southeastern Ohio Legal Services. We've combined, and now we're just called LASCO, and so that can make it a little easier to find us. But if you're out, not in Columbus, you might be more familiar with our old name of Souls. So our mission at Legal Aid is to provide civil legal aid and advocacy to overcome unfairness and injustice, to reduce poverty and increase opportunity. And more specifically, we believe that every veteran deserves meaningful access to justice, and our mission, as you see there, is rooted in the belief that strong legal advocacy can transform lives. And I'm going to talk about the type of issues that we help with. We've heard so much from the criminal legal system today, and it's really exciting, all the programs that are happening over there. We're trying to operate our own veteran-specific practices at Legal Aid of Southeast and Central Ohio. In my role, like 50% I provide direct legal help to veterans that are clients of mine, and then the other 50% is trying to build those connections with supportive services in our service area, or people who work for the VA, or pro bono attorneys who want to volunteer with us, and coming to things like this to spread the word. So here's our service area there. If you're in one of those counties, come get my card, let's connect. So I am in Columbus, but I can go anywhere in our service area. So we have general resources, kind of like what we're doing today, where we can give a training or give a presentation on what it is we do. We also do some things on our Facebook Live, like our tax team in particular is very into giving presentations about tax issues. We can also give referrals to other types of legal services, like we don't do criminal stuff, we don't do traffic, so just civil issues for us. And we also have general legal information and self-help materials on our website that are available at any time. So we're a pretty big law firm in Columbus. It surprises me every time I hear it, we're one of the largest law firms in Columbus, just because we have, I think it's 60 to 70 attorneys in our Columbus office. So we have all those staff attorneys providing services, and then we also have a really strong pro bono network, particularly in Columbus, like that brief advice clinic that we have at the VA in Columbus monthly. That's one of the events I'm proudest of. I see one of the VJOs that helps put it on here. We've developed so many relationships with social workers at VA through that program, because partly with our civil legal issues, the more lead time somebody can give us on something, the better. So, you know, there's a lot of times you get a phone call and it's like, I've got court tomorrow. If we can get that person when they first get a collection notice, maybe rather than before they're in court, there's a lot more that we can do. So our services, we give advice only directly to clients. We do brief service like helping draft wills, helping fill out paperwork, or we do full case representation. So if we take someone in, we're going to have to cover these 5 eligibility things for every single client. So we're going to look at income, we're going to look at assets, make sure they're an eligible immigrant for our services. Because we're a law firm, we have to make sure we're not a conflict, and we make sure that their current legal issue is a priority issue for us, because there's so many people that can't afford an attorney that need our help. And so we've got particular issues that we find we can make the greatest impact in. So our clients, this is again generally not our veteran clients, you have to be at a household income at or below 150 to 200% of the poverty level. That'll depend on what county you're in, and assets at or below that $15,000 mark. And that's why this grant that we have from VA can be so helpful, because as you know, if somebody's getting disability payments from VA, it doesn't take much to bump you over that 200% mark, and then you'd be out of luck for getting services from us. But if your housing is at risk, and particularly if that legal issue you're facing is putting your housing at risk, like foreclosure or eviction, you can come to us for help. So I don't know if there's a bunch of attorneys in the room or what, but we do have to do conflict checking. So anytime we get a name, we'll put in our system, see if we've helped the other side or whatever. And sometimes we do have a conflict, and I've had to tell a social worker in the community, like, sorry, we can't help, and like that's the end of the conversation. But that doesn't mean at all stop referring people, because we want to help, and if we can find a way, we will. Our priorities, again, this is just, it kind of speaks for itself. Sometimes there'll be someone on parental leave, like I was this summer, so we technically didn't have our veterans attorney this summer, but there was someone filling my role. But at any time, we might have shifting priorities. So if you ever have a question, is this something you can help with, please just send me an email. For those that are outside of our priorities, we have our website with the self-help library, and this is where our brief advice clinics really shine. So like at the VA, our monthly clinic, and then we have clinics at other VAs across our service area. This is where we try to help as many people that usually aren't a priority area for us. So like we see a lot of people with questions about just a general divorce. Maybe they have some papers about it that they don't understand. That's a really good fit for our advice clinic. And the VA has been really good about referring people to our clinic. So if someone calls the crisis line and has a legal issue, they tell them, be there the second Thursday of the month, and you can talk to an attorney. And it's important to note that for our brief advice clinics, you do still have to meet the income eligibility requirements. So the things that we help with, and for veterans specifically, I'd say the biggest things that we see are housing issues, reentry issues like expungement and sealing, economic justice, which is our fancy way of saying, like debt issues, if you've been sued by a collector, something like that, And then also with our health law practice, we're talking about like public benefits. So and I'll go more in detail on that. So for housing law, one cool thing about LASCO is that we have on-site legal clinics for evictions. So we're at the court in Athens County, Franklin, Fairfield, Licking, and Washington counties. So when there's eviction court, our attorneys are there. We can help. These are kind of like reasons you would want to call us. If you've got someone who was locked out by a landlord and that landlord didn't have a court order. If the utilities were shut off by a landlord and the landlord didn't have a court order. A housing issue that's wrapped up within a domestic violence issue, that'd be a reason to call. And if you believe there's been discrimination. Other priorities are foreclosures, land contract issues, conditions issues, like rent escrow. We have a helpful packet on our website to help someone through the escrow process, and lead poisoning issues. So with family law, our main priorities are protection orders for victims of domestic violence or stalking, child custody proceedings, but these are generally when it's a very serious issue. And with child support, one of those legal needs identified in the challenge survey every year is for child support obligors and veterans having issues with that. That's an area where sometimes you don't need an attorney, and we can give you good information packet about how to make sure that the child support agency is taking out the right amount. And if you think that process, you've gone through that process and something's still wrong, because they are supposed to look at disability payments in a certain way, like they have to count funding in specific ways. If you're still having issues, then that would be a time to give us a call. And divorce, we generally only get involved when it's a pretty egregious, extreme power imbalance. So with public benefits and health law, we cover loss or denial of medical or public benefits, so Social Security, disability, SSI. We do some veterans benefits work if somebody's got that denial. But I always point people in the first instance to their Veterans Service Commission office in their county for a veterans benefits issue. We are looking to expand our discharge upgrade practice, and it seems like maybe having a chat with some of our veterans treatment courts would be a good way to set up some partner relationships there. And Medicaid, Medicare, home-based community care waivers, those sorts of things we can help with. Education advocacy. So if you have a veteran whose child maybe is having some sort of school issue and it doesn't seem right, you can give us a call. Consumer law. So this was another one of those sections where we see a lot of veterans facing these sorts of issues. We prioritize when someone's been sued for debt collection, foreclosures, as I've said, bankruptcy. We do have bankruptcy practice. We can go through and talk with someone about when would bankruptcy be a good idea. Utility problems, talk about student loans, FABCO, or those rental reporting issues. I was just talking with somebody here about how evictions and having them on your record and how long they stay on your FABCO record can create a lot of issues for people. And unfortunately, there's not a way that I can get around that, but just informing people of where that record of eviction is and what impacts it could be having can be helpful. And for tax, we prioritize federal issues. So if you have a state tax issue, but it's linked up with your federal tax issue, that's something we could assist with. And we don't prepare tax returns unless it's to resolve a dispute with the IRS. For reentry, we prioritize criminal record sealing and expungement. We have some really big events. I don't, if anybody's in the Columbus area might be familiar with some of those, where we serve like 400 people in a day, getting their records sealed and expunged. We work on expungement for survivors of human trafficking, certificates of qualification for employment, and driver's license reinstatement. That driver's license reinstatement is another one of those things identified on the challenge survey, and I'm sure I'm not surprising anyone when I talk about these issues that we see are the issues that you see. I just want to make sure you know the things that we can help with. So we do some wills and advanced directives for seniors. With our wills program, veterans are our priority clients for that. We just had a wills clinic last night at the VFW in town, one of the VFWs in town. We also help with transfer on death affidavits. These can be so important and, you know, kind of change families' stories because of generational wealth, keeping that home in the family. So it's good, important work. Our Columbus office can help with nonprofits and entrepreneurs. So if there's a veteran out there who has a nonprofit that they're trying to get started, we can sometimes help with incorporating, bylaw drafting, contracts, reviewing a commercial lease, stuff like that. So I want to give some example stories because I think that's where the work we do really shines and makes sense. So Eric was a Navy veteran in Columbus. He had major issues in his basement, and like exposed wiring and water issues. And he applied for a grant from the city to make some repairs, and they denied him. And he found out he was denied because he had a tax lien on his home that he was unaware of. He had a tax lien because a few years prior he had taken out his retirement to help his parents, and he didn't realize the tax implications of that. We were able to resolve the tax issue, and then he was able to get approved for that program and make some vital home repairs. And as he said there, it's a big weight lifted off my back. Now I can breathe a little. If it weren't for my attorneys, none of this would have happened. We have Bobby, and this one I wanted to highlight because it's about $340. But to Bobby, this was a really big deal. Bobby had contracted with a propane company and had finished his contract with them, and they said, you need to remove the propane tank from your property. And so he hired some people to do it, and they weren't able to remove it. Then they started trying to continue charging him. It got up to $340, and then they eventually were kind of harassing him for the money and sued him. One of our legal attorneys in our Marion office was able to stop that collection effort and get those charges waived. Jane was a disabled Air Force veteran. When her late aunt died, Jane inherited that home, and the family was very excited, and then they came to find out that her aunt was behind on payments, and Jane wasn't able to negotiate with the mortgage company because she wasn't on the title. She wasn't the official owner of the home. We were able to get involved, and attorney Mark Niktowski in our Chillicothe office got that home transferred into her name. And you can see there her story. If it weren't for Mark, I would not have this home. I couldn't have done this without you, period. Frank. This story comes to us from our Columbus tenant advocacy program, so our eviction help desk that's always in Columbus. Frank, it says there, faced eviction over noise complaints. So you might think people were making complaints about him. No, he was making so many complaints about noise to his landlord that it was causing a problem. They tried to work with him. They moved him to a different unit. He was still making all these complaints. Eventually, they decided to file for eviction. Our social worker, who's at the eviction help desk, was able to work with Frank and talk to his medical providers and found out he had early stage dementia that was really affecting his behavior. our attorneys were able to negotiate extra time for him to move out. And with support, we got him a new place to live where he could be safe and not make all these complaints anymore. So, how to apply? You can always call our intake line. But if you're in our Columbus office, I would encourage you, or if you're in a Columbus area, I would send me an email first if you have a veteran, or call me directly. Our intake line can have a long wait lately. There's a lot of people with a lot of need right now. You can always apply on our website. You could also direct veterans to go to the Columbus VA on the second Thursday of every month, like I said, to meet with a pro bono attorney at the Brief Advice Clinic. And this just covers, again, what we do when someone comes to us, so you can know if you refer someone to us, what they're going to go through. We're going to do an intake. We're going to ask about their income and their assets, make sure they're eligible, and then we'll decide what we're best able to help them with, what our capacity level is, whether that's we're going to represent them fully throughout the case, whether we're going to give them brief advice and send them on their way, or help them with some documents. And we ask that you help us expand. I'm thankful to be in Ohio. I think there's so much cool work being done, and in this room it's been really exciting to hear what everybody's working on. And there's a lot of people that want to help, and we just want to be one small part of that. So if you have somebody with a civil legal need, again, refer them to me, or after Diana's presentation, she'll show you how to get help also. So thank you.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Diana Wiebe, and I'm the Communications and Program Manager for Ohio Legal Help. I've been working on Ohio Legal Help since 2018, before we were officially an organization. I worked at the Ohio Access to Justice Foundation, which funds legal aid throughout Ohio, and they were also the incubator of Ohio Legal Help. So, I'm going to give you a little background on how we came to be first. So I'm sure many of you are aware of the justice gap, where there's a lot of people who fall in this middle range where they maybe don't qualify for legal aid, or they have an issue that legal aid isn't able to take on, but they also still cannot afford an attorney. And so their civil legal needs often go unmet, or they are going it alone too. So that's about 92% of the civil legal needs of low-income individuals, both nationwide and in Ohio. So in 2015, the Supreme Court of Ohio convened the Task Force on Access to Justice, and they created a report that outlined some recommendations, including the development and maintenance of a statewide legal help website for all of Ohio. And then in 2017, that's when the foundation first convened a steering committee comprised of all the people you see up here on the screen. And that steering committee is really what first began this development of the website. So they were tasked with creating a mission for our organization, and then outlining what the vision would look like for Ohio Legal Help. And just a little snippet of like one of the things that they helped determine with our website, one of our community action agency partners let us know that, a lot of people don't have access to a laptop or necessarily broadband everywhere in Ohio, but they do have a cell phone. Everyone has a cell phone. So that is what determined why we would be a mobile first platform. Okay, so the steering committee's vision was that in addition to being mobile first, we would guide users to the relevant legal information that they need, and we would do that through simple triage and navigation. And then we would inform users of their legal options through plain language legal information written at a 6th to 8th grade reading level, through self-help tools such as an action plan, and then through forms put on the website through TurboTax-like sort of assembly. And then lastly, we would connect users to community-based resources that was based on their need, their geography, and then a few demographics too. So I'm going to show you a quick video of how a user might come to our website and what their journey could look like.
Ohio Legal Help is a secure, trusted website that helps hundreds of thousands of Ohioans navigate their legal challenges. This video will show you how to use the Ohio Legal Help website, whether that is from your phone or computer. Let's say, for example, you have a family issue. You can click on the family card and answer a few questions to help us direct you to the right information for you. Once you are on the page, read through Understanding the Basics for step-by-step legal information and what action you can take. At any point, you can click on Listen to this article and have the text on the page read aloud to you. The website is also available in several languages. Next, look at Forms and Letters to see what court forms might help with your legal issue. You can create an account through the My OLH User Hub, which allows you to find, save, and complete court forms on your own schedule. We'll ask a few questions to make sure this is the right form for you. And we can direct you to the right resource if the form isn't for you. You can see your progress and follow along with each step. The website is mobile first, which means you can complete sections right on your phone. You can save and exit at any time. When you have completed the forms, you can email or download the form at any time. It will always be available in your account, unless you choose to delete the information. Lastly, if you have more questions or think you need to speak with a lawyer or other community advocate, go to Legal Help and Lawyers or Local Government and Community Resources for more help. Get started with resolving your legal issue today at www.ohiolegalhelp.org.
Okay, so that is a broad overview of how someone might navigate through the website. As you can see up here, we have a wide range of topics that fall under that civil legal umbrella. And our top areas on the website have always been family, housing, and then consumer and debt issues. We do have information on crime and traffic, but that's usually related to the collateral consequences of a criminal issue. So something like driver's license reinstatement, record sealing, and expungement. And then something that we hear a lot of our partners tell us is that a lot of people, this is maybe their first time in a civil court. So they need help in setting expectations too. So our going to court section is another highly visited area too, because basically we like to demystify what the court process is. And then I always like to point out too, if you are someone who's helping a veteran or another person with a legal issue and you don't want to go through the full quiz at the beginning there, you can always go to our site map, and that has the full list of all of the legal areas on our website. Okay, so a little bit about where we are today. We officially launched in September 2019, so about 6 months before the pandemic. So we did really hit the ground running with that. And it wound up being a great resource for people during that time where they really did have to look online for a lot of help. We were able to stand up, changes to evictions, unemployment benefits, that sort of thing within 24 hours of getting the information. And today we are available in multiple languages, including Spanish, Ukrainian, Arabic, and a whole lot more than that. And then as you saw in the video, we also have the text-to-speech integration on our website, and that really is for someone with literacy issues. If they can't necessarily read the information on the page, it can be read aloud to them. And then data-wise, where we're at, about 70% of our users are on a mobile device, and on average, we receive about 80,000 visits a month. And in just 6 years, we've served over 4.1 million unique users. And along with that, we've made hundreds of thousands of referrals, including to like legal aid and the Bar Association and courts, because sometimes, the best thing for someone is to have an attorney. It's not necessarily to go it alone. So if we can, we like to connect them with a lawyer too. Okay, so one of the demographic questions that we ask in the quiz is if you are a veteran. So we're able to capture some data on veterans visiting our website, and that's about 14% of our users who identify themselves as a veteran. And then from there, they tend to be on the younger side, like under age 60, and with an income at or under 200% of the federal poverty level. They do indicate lower numbers of housing insecurity. Our typical user, that's about 47% of our users who indicate housing insecurity, and about 20% of our veterans do too. But they do access our housing resources very similarly. So then, as you can see here, I mentioned that family, housing, consumer, and debt are our top areas on the website, visited by all of our users, and that really tracks with our veterans as well who are coming to the website. And it's something that we were told kind of at the beginning of this process with developing content for veterans was that, veterans don't necessarily see themselves as a veteran with a legal issue, but rather as just a person with a legal issue. And I think that this really shows that they're accessing content in the same way that our users are too. Okay, so now I'm going to do a very brief demonstration for you of our website. All right, so a lot of times people will land on our homepage if they're just generally looking for legal help or if they've been referred to us. But a lot of times people will also Google what their legal issue is that they're looking for, and then they will come right into that topic page. So we like to think of it as like a no wrong door approach to getting information. But for today, I'm gonna just start from the homepage. And let's say, for example, I'm having an issue with my landlord. He's not making repairs on my home that I've requested, and I'm thinking about filing for rent escrow. So along the quiz, at any point you can click on the button to have it read aloud to you. And then if you're on a mobile device, it's like the big buttons that are easy to press too. This is where we capture the geography information, and that helps us map better resources for people dependent upon where they are. And then along the way, we're checking in with them, we're making sure that this is, they're in this with us. It's not us just telling them where they should go, but making sure that we are getting the right information for them too. And then these questions help us map that federal poverty level. Most people aren't going to necessarily know where they fall in that, but they can give us an income range, and that will help us map. And then down here is where you see those demographic questions, which again, these help us to provide more resources for people if they fall into one of these. So for today, I'm going to say, I am a veteran, and I'm going to hit no on the other ones. Okay, and so then this is the topic page, and it's getting your landlord to make repairs. So down here, you'll see, you can listen to the article. This is the understanding the basics section, written at that 6th to 8th grade reading level, with legal terminology that tends to skew it more towards 8th grade, but for everything else, we can keep it more towards 6th. So this is gonna tell people what they need to know to take action for their legal issue. And then down here, you'll see the forms and letters section. So let's say I've already verbally communicated to my landlord that they have not that my refrigerator is broken and I need them to fix it, and they haven't done anything. So then I can send them a formal letter, and then all you do is you start the form. We make sure that the form is right for you. Just gonna hit yes on all these. And then I'm gonna quickly fill out the form, so bear with me. Okay, and then right here is where you'll see where we're asking people to fill out what the issue is with their landlord. So I'm just gonna put that my refrigerator is broken. And then we're done, and all we're gonna do is we hit submit, and then from there, someone can email this letter to themselves or they can download it. And I'll show you what that looks like. So on this first page, this is the cover page, and we're gonna tell people what they can do with this letter next. It's giving them their action steps. And then down here, you'll see all of the information that I put in here has been populated into this letter, including where I've said what the issue is. So that's a little example of how someone might use our website. Okay. And then the other thing that we do is we have virtual self-help centers for courts, and these allow anyone who's a self-represented litigant who's visiting a court to be able to get some of this information that's more specific to their particular court that they're visiting. So we have them so far in Cuyahoga County, Lorain, and Montgomery County, and then we have more on the way for this year, including in Franklin County. So I'm just gonna play you a little portion of this video. I won't do the whole thing, and then we'll move on from there.
Ohio Legal Help is a secure, trusted website that helps hundreds of thousands of Ohioans navigate their legal challenges. Ohio Legal Help created a virtual self-help center for courts. We are honored to be partnering with the Cuyahoga County Domestic Relations Court to build the Cuyahoga County Virtual Self-Help Center. The Virtual Self-Help Center will enable self-represented litigants visiting the court to find information about the court, fill out and save forms, and connect with the court through a chat feature. Let's say, for example, a litigant wants to start the process for a divorce. They can click on Start Your Case and answer a few questions to help us navigate them to the right information. Once they're on the page, they can read through Understanding the Basics for step-by-step legal information and the action steps they can take. Next, they can look at Forms and Letters to see the court forms for their legal issue. They can create an account which allows them to find, save, and complete court forms on their own schedule. To begin the form, they can look at the steps on the screen and check the status to see what to work on first.
As you can see there, that's an example of how the Cuyahoga County Domestic Relations Court has their virtual self-help center. So it's got the uniform domestic relations forms on there, and it's specific to their court. So one of the last things I wanted to point out is that we do have some tools that I find useful for helpers and other advocates. So one is our Veteran Resource Finder. So on there, if you click that link, you'll be directed to put in your county, and then from there, it's gonna serve up your legal aid organization, your public defender, as well as your VSO, and if there's a community justice outreach program in your area too. And then we have a tool for finding your legal aid as well. And then there's a chat feature on our homepage where if you're struggling to find a certain topic area, we can help you navigate to that. And then lastly, there's some cards on the table up there. So if you are frequently being asked a legal question and you cannot give legal advice, this is something that you can hand out to people that directs them to our website. And it's a good starting point for someone to find out legal information and maybe fill out a form too. So that's all I have. All right. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for our presenters? Yes, sir.
You talk about in your drop-down menu about a veteran who has a disability. Is that a disability rating from the VA or a physical disability like amputation or something of that nature?
So for those questions, that's really for anyone with a disability who identifies as having a disability. It's so they can say yes or no on that, or they don't have to answer it at all. It's not specific to veterans only, but for anyone who's visiting the website.
We have a question from someone online. Do other legal aids in Ohio offer the same services to veterans as our first presenter kind of shared?
Yes. Look up what legal aid is in your area, your county. I meet, how often do we meet? Every 2 months or something with all the attorneys from legal aids that are focused specifically on veterans issues. So the legal aids are definitely passionate about this work, and they've got somebody on veterans issues, no matter where you are in Ohio. So.
The question was, how long has your domestic relations program been operating?
Are you asking for legal aid or for Ohio Legal Help? Okay, yeah, so the virtual self-help centers, they began in 2022. Our pilot project was with Montgomery County Domestic Relations Court, and then from there we did Cuyahoga and Lorain. And Lorain is a little different because it's also a juvenile court as well. And these are all scalable to really any county, any number of people who are coming to that court too. And they take us about 6 months to stand up.
So have you been to the State Association of Judges for Domestic Relations to show them?
We have. We've been to the OJC, we've presented there, and I also table there as well. And then Susan, our executive director, she meets with judges on a regular basis. Yeah.
Diana, I know that you are always enhancing the services that you offer online. Can you talk a little bit about where you're headed? I know you mentioned the upcoming pilot with Franklin County, but some of the other enhancements that you're planning on making?
Yeah, so I think a top of mind issue right now for people is AI, and that can be kind of scary and intimidating, but in our technology world, we have been experimenting with it for about a year now. And one of the things that we're doing is to change that landlord letter, for example. So we've created this learning language model where if someone's inputting what their problem is and maybe there's grammatical errors or they're going on about how much they hate their landlord, for example, there's like all this extra information that you want to filter out in that letter. This AI tool that we're developing will then read through what they've input and give a new suggestion as to what it should say instead. And then the user still has to accept that. And then that makes that letter much easier to hand off.
We have another online question. What is the cost of the local domestic relations virtual help center?
So those are really dependent upon the type of forms that courts want to have. So it does range. There's a base price of $25,000, and that's if you choose to go with all of the uniform domestic relations forms that we've already built out and you make no other changes. But we're willing to work with any court, any county, big or small as well. And we'll also help with like finding grant money and stuff like that too. But our main website is completely free. All right, thank you.